Timothy, Timothy, where on earth did you go? Timothy, Timothy, God, why don't I know?
Welcome to Table Talk with Tim, and today's discussion: debate stirs over U.S. Taliban captive swap. Washington. Army Sergeant Bo Bergdahl can expect a buoyant homecoming after 5 years in Taliban hands, but those in the government who worked for his release face mounting questions over the prisoner swap that won his freedom. Even the first hours of Bergdahl's handoff to U.S. Special Forces in eastern Afghanistan, it was clear this would not be an uncomplicated yellow ribbon celebration. 5 terrorist suspects also walked free, stirring a debate in Washington over whether the exchange will heighten the risk of other Americans being snatched as bargaining chips and whether the released detainees, several senior Taliban figures among them, would find their way back to the fight. U.S. officials said Sunday that Bergdahl's health and safety appeared in jeopardy, prompting rapid action to secure his release. Had we waited and lost him, said National Security Advisor Susan Rice, I don't think anybody would have forgiven the United States government. Republicans said the deals could set a troubling precedent. One called it shocking. Arizona Senator John McCain said of the 5 Guantanamo detainees, these are the hardest of the hardcore. Tireless campaigners for their son's freedom, Bob and Janie Bergdahl, thanked all who were behind their effort to retrieve him. You were not left behind, Bob Bergdahl told reporters as if speaking to his son. We are so proud of the way this was carried out. He spoke to Boise, Idaho, wearing a long, bushy beard he'd grown to honor his son, as residents in the sergeant's hometown of Haley prepared for a homecoming celebration. The 5 detainees left Guantanamo aboard a U.S. military aircraft flying to Qatar, which served as go-between in the negotiations. They are to be banned from leaving Qatar for at least a year. Among the 5, a Taliban deputy intelligence minister, a former Taliban interior minister with ties to al-Qaeda leader Osama bin Laden, and a figure linked by human rights monitors to mass killings of Shiite Muslims in Afghanistan 2000 and 2001. Bergdahl, 28, was being treated at the Landstuhl Regional Medical Center in Germany. Officials did not offer details about Bergdahl's health to support their contention that his release had to be arranged without delay. Rice, on one hand, said he had lost considerable weight and faced an acute situation. Yet she said he appeared to be in good physical condition and is said to be walking. Questions persisted, too, about the circumstances of Bergdahl's 2009 capture. Defense Secretary Chuck Hagel declined to comment on earlier reports that the sergeant had walked away from his unit. Disillusioned with the war, such matters will be dealt with later, Hagel said. Hagel, visiting troops in Afghanistan, was met with silence when he told a group of them in a Bagram Air Force airfield hangar, "This is a happy day. We got one of our own back." It was unclear whether the absence of cheers and applause came from a reluctance to display emotion in front of the Pentagon chief or from any doubts among the troops about Bergdahl. In weighing the swap, U.S. officials decided that it could help the effort to reach reconciliation with the Taliban, which the U.S. sees as key to more security in Afghanistan, but they acknowledged the risk that the deal would embolden insurgents. Republicans pressed that point. Have we just put a price on other U.S. soldiers? Asked Senator Ted Cruz of Texas. What does this tell terrorists? That if you capture a U.S. soldier, you can trade that soldier for 5 terrorists? Republican Representative Adam Kinzinger of Illinois said, I'm going to celebrate him coming home, but added that the release of 5 mid to high level Taliban is shocking to me, especially without coming to Congress. Now, as this goes on, there's other things that were said, like his father, being Bergdahl's dad, said that he was proud of his son for going as far as he could to help the Afghan people. Troops that knew Bergdahl said that he walked off his post and he was very disillusioned with the military and the war, and at one point made a comment that he thought the military was more like the Peace Corps with rifles. Now, the worst thing that I heard, and I heard it today, was that within a day of him walking off his post, artillery rounds and IEDs started showing up at exactly the locations where Bergdahl's comrades, our soldiers, were used to patrol. So in that, trying to find Bergdahl, because I'm sure at some point they didn't know if he walked off or he was kidnapped, we actually lost men trying to retrieve him. Mm-hmm. Our guys died for him. So if he is an AWOL type of person in combat over in Afghanistan, they said that he knew where to go. He actually should have been able to get to safety. He didn't. He wound up in the Taliban hands, and some feel that he actually switched sides. So I think one of you gentlemen said that he was known to play badminton, right?
Yeah.
Badminton every day with...
He taught his captors how to play badminton.
Taught his captors how to play badminton. So let's see. How about Dr. D'Angelo? What do you think we should have done? Or any opinion you have on the whole story, sir?
Well, I feel for the family that obviously had their son in captivity for 5 years as a POW. I hate to see any American that could technically be left behind. SWAP, should it be something that we do, at any point in time? Perhaps no, but the war is winding down. I think this has to get feathered out into the circumstances of what happened when perhaps this soldier walked away for whatever reason he did, inappropriately, apparently, but it has to be feathered out. And should we make sure that our own come back? Well, the Israelis will trade one Israeli for a busload of Palestinians because it's their own. I guess I'm of the opinion we need to get our own back. Whether the service was honorable or not, that's to be established. That's why we have tribunals and different convening hearings to discuss these matters in hindsight. If we're coming home, then let's get home and let's have everyone home, and that's my opinion.
Captain Updahl.
Well, it's my opinion from all I've seen and read. First of all, the thing that was glossed over when President Obama announced the swap and the return of Bo Bergdahl, nothing was said about the fact that he walked away from his post. And now it's coming out. So my point is that report that you just read, Corporal Thornton, said that he's being treated well and cared for. I hope he's being interrogated also to see exactly what happened, because if in fact he walked away from his post, I don't think he should get a hero's reception. I think he should be charged with desertion, and it appears as though it was some form of that rather than being captured by the Taliban. So I really hope the Army investigators are doing their work right now, interviewing him, getting the straight scoop from him, and from that point on, if charges are warranted, I hope they go all the way with them, because I guess the thing that really irritated me was what you brought up earlier. I was reading a report from one of his Taliban captors who was overseeing it, saying, oh yeah, he loved our green tea. He drank green tea every day. He made it himself, and he loved to play badminton, and he actually taught all his captors how to play badminton, and he had daily badminton games with his captors. So that doesn't sound like a prisoner of war to me. That sounds like somebody that walked over and said, give me a deal. And I'm just waiting to see what the investigations bring out.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to Tim's opinion. I have to agree with you, Dick. That is an issue that is being brought up and has to be dealt with. And like I said, we need to tether and feather out exactly the circumstances of what happened 5 years ago. And if there's an issue, he will have to pay any consequence or deal with the consequence of whatever is the discussion as to what absolutely occurred back then. Tim?
Well, I thought of an interesting thing today when someone said, you know, he's going to come home and, you know, and talk bad about the American troops. And apparently he was known while he was in. They knew the guy, Bergdahl, was very disillusioned, very disappointed with the military. Mm-hmm. And he constantly complained about America. And his father saying, I'm very proud of how far he got with helping the Afghan people. So in other words, it sounds like they're glad that he demonstrated his disenchantment with America and the U.S. military by walking away to the point of getting some of our guys killed. So here's the funny thing. You know, when you're in Pohang, Korea, I was going to make this bumper sticker once, and it would say, "Shut up. Unless you've been to Pohang, Korea, you don't really have an opinion." Mm-hmm. So here comes Bergdahl, and you know, a lot of guys, like during Vietnam, they've said this thing, or after Vietnam, you know what, shut up. If you haven't been there, I don't want to hear your opinion. Well, now you got a guy who's been there. He did fight. Like you said, I think he was a sergeant. He did go over there. He did join. He joined the military. He fought. He hated it, disliked it, decided that he'd rather be on the enemy's side. So I guess you've been there. You have a right to have an opinion. Mm-hmm. Now, do we have the right to charge him? Yes. Do the families that lost their boys to save him, should there be retribution there? I'd say so. Will there be? You know,
sure,
that's a tough thing because even though Bergdahl may quite be a true polished turd, but the bottom line is probably every one of those guys that did go to save him or to retrieve him and died would have done that regardless, only because he was an American and they don't have the right to hold one of ours captive. Or then again, was he really captive?
That's right.
You know, if he's coming back now, that's interesting. I saw this coming up on Facebook all the time over the last several years. Nobody ever wrote, "Bring Bergdahl home. He's been a captive for how many years? And, oh, by the way, he's not a good guy." Yeah. This other stuff just came out now. Mm-hmm. So there you have it. Yep. Good guy, bad guy, but he has a right to his opinion because he's been there, done that.
One other point that you brought up that caught my attention, Tim, you said that, well, he made sergeant and he was fighting over there. I would love to see his record, to see if he participated in any firefights or anything, and if he did, what kind of participation was it? Was it half-hearted? Could the buddies around him, because the guys around him, I wouldn't call them buddies, but were the guys around him dependent on him? Could they depend on him? You
Right.
wonder. From what we're hearing now, they didn't look to him for support, and I'd like to see some more testimony on that behalf.
I'm coming from your perspective, Captain. I'd like to see that because I think that's an excellent remark.
Well, he sounds more like the Colonel Hussein from Fort Hood. You know, they knew that guy was dirty. They knew he had a mental problem, and they should have pulled him out earlier, and lives would have been saved. Same thing goes for Bergdahl. If he was running his mouth like that, then he should have been pulled out of the unit immediately, evaluated, sent back home, and given, even then, a dishonorable discharge, and lives would have been saved.
Sure.
And we wouldn't have 5 terrorists running amok now over in Qatar, and you know they're not going to stay in Qatar.
Oh, but Tim, they're going to be under house arrest for a whole year. They won't be doing any terrorist activities over there. It's been guaranteed by our leader.
It's nice to get just a year house arrest. All right, folks, thank you. That's Table Talk with Tim, and we'll be right back after these messages.